All right, this is Jonah chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. And this is God talking to Jonah. He says, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord Yahweh. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. And so he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord Yahweh. So God told Jonah to go to Nineveh, but he got up and went in the opposite direction. Instead of going east to Nineveh, he intended to go west, about as far west as one could go in the known world of that time. It's believed that the city of Tarshish was on the far western part of the Mediterranean Sea in present-day Spain. Also, I want you to notice the phrase, away from the presence of the Lord Yahweh, as you read through chapter 1 of Jonah. This seems to be a thematic statement describing Jonah's attitude toward God. Now you see in verse 3 two different times that he fled from the presence of the Lord Yahweh. Now you're also going to see this later in verse 10. Another thematic statement describing Jonah in the first two chapters is the phrase, he went down. In verse 3, he went down to a city named Joppa. Now in Hebrew thought, moving in any direction away from the city of Jerusalem was considered as going down, even if it was in a northward direction or to a place of higher elevation, because it was in a direction moving away from God's special city. Also, in verse 3, he went down into the ship that was setting off for Tarshish. Now we'll also later read in verse 5 about Jonah going down into the lower parts of the ship. And then finally in verse 17 and on into chapter 2, there's the idea of him going down to the bottom of the sea in the belly of a great fish. And so the thematic idea here is that as Jonah moves away from God, he's simultaneously going down, meaning that things are getting worse. So have you ever found that when you move away from God, things tend to get worse? In our next devotion, we're going to be looking at the same passage, but with a different discussion. And as you meditate on this passage, I want you to think about that God's presence is good. And think about that throughout the day. And as you respond in prayer to this passage, tell God that you like His presence. This is praise. And ask Him to change you to enjoy His presence more. And step out in faith. Remember that God is with you in everything you do today.